Welcome to the Tales of Our Town, Canal Fulton, and today we're going to interview Gary Johnson. When and where were you born?
I was born September 29th, 1946 at the Old Mercy Hospital in Canton.
What was your parents' and siblings' names?
My father was Raymond Park Johnson, alias Rip, and my mother was Eleanor Markley Johnson, and they just called her Jean. She hated Eleanor. That was her middle name.
And if you were born here in
Stark County.
Stark County, yeah. Do you know why your family chose to live here in Canal Fulton?
Yes. My grandfather, on my dad's side, was a pretty good sized farm back then, and that's where we lived on the farm when Mom and Dad first got married in one of the summer houses there on Route 236 in Johnson Street. And that's where they set up housekeeping.
What's your earliest memories of Canal Fulton and how old were you?
The earliest memories would have been going to the grocery store at Dennis and Deal's, and parking along the side where the diagonal parking was, and going to the barber shop, which was Ted Jolliffe's. It's a little knick-knack store now, right there on Canal Street. And they put that board across the thing, and I mean, it set me in there and put a sheet over me and don't move. And I'm looking across the street, and it was the big city, because we lived out of town on the farm. You only came into town on Saturday or Sunday to go to church, and that was it. And that was the big city.
How did your family spend their Sundays while you were growing up?
Well, we always went to church Sunday, and then Sunday was always fried chicken and the standard things on the farm, and Sunday afternoon people went and visited each other. And the adults had adult conversation, and the kids, no matter what the weather, if it was bad, we went and played in the barn. If it wasn't, we was out in the yard and just playing together, and that's what we did.
Which church did you go to?
St. John's Lutheran down here.
Okay. If you celebrated Christmas, what was your favorite sight or smell or memory of that holiday?
Well, by today's standard, they would say we were poor. We had like a 3-foot Christmas tree on the little kitchen table in the summer house, and had real lead tinsel icicles and bubble lights. That was Christmas. The Christmas tree was like alive. It moved, and we had a star on top of it. And the smells, Mom would bake what they call them pinwheel cookies, pie crust rolled up with cinnamon and butter on it. They were just fantastic.
Those were good. What types of jobs did your parents have?
Well, my father, I've just found out recently, he graduated in 1938 and enlisted in the Army in 1940. Of course, the war broke out. He went all the way through the war, Africa, campaigning, and through Italy, and came home and got married to Mom, and he worked at Akron Transportation as a bus mechanic. And next thing I knew, he was working at the Ford garage as a mechanic, and about 4 months later, he bought the thing in town. Mom was always a housewife. When he bought the garage, she went down and she worked on doing the books and things like that.
What was it called?
Johnson's Auto Company.
What's it called? Was it called later?
Well, after Dad died, Mom sold it to Pitkin Ford, and that's what it was for years until Frank Pitkin sold it to his brother-in-law, Studer, and he just left the Pitkin name on it. It was easier than changing it.
Did you know your grandparents, and what were your memories of them?
Well, Grandma and Grandpa Markley, down in Carrollton, had this great big huge house. It's 5 bedrooms, walk-in closets, it's like 12 by 16. There's 3 of those, and he had a dark room, an amateur photographer, and taught me photography when I was at the Little Stinker. And Grandma was a housewife, of course. They raised 3 kids. Now, my grandparents here in Canal Fulton, I had a step-grandmother, which I made no comment on her. And I didn't know my grandmother. She had passed many years before. And my grandfather was a full-time farmer. His name was Briar W. Johnson. The W didn't stand for anything. It was just a middle initial. And he had 280 acres, and I thought that was Camelot.
Oh, yeah. That was a lot. What schools did you attend in Canal Fulton?
Wow, now that's a good question. I was so fortunate. Where the basketball courts are, that was grade school. I went 1 through 4 there. Then I went 5 through 8 across the street in the school they just tore down. And then we went to high school for the next 4 years. So I got the grand
You
tour.
went to all 3 schools. Wow. That was great. What type of music did you listen to, and who were your favorite singers or bands?
Well, we grew up with doo-wop,
Yeah.
and then rock and roll came in. And Christmas time was Gene Autry singing Jingle Bells, and there's nobody can do that like Gene Autry can. But we loved the rock and roll, the Beach Boys, and all the, it's just music you could understand the words the first time you heard it. It was good dance music, just good all around American music.
Great sock hops.
Mm-hmm.
Had sock hops at the high school because we weren't allowed to have shoes on the gym floor.
Nobody wore shoes.
Were you involved in any of the clubs or played any sports at
What?
school?
I ran track. I did pretty good in a 100-yard dash and a 220. And I played in the band all through grade school and high school as a drummer. And I belonged to the High Y and the Projection Club. I could fix the projectors. I was crazy on those things. And kept busy.
What's your favorite memory during school year?
Oh, golly.
Was you involved in moving Mrs. Gordon's car?
We had a teacher, she taught English, Mrs. Gordon. She drove a Nash Metropolitan, red and white. So Mr. Puffenberger had this great big band seminar every year, and we had to tear the gym all down and to put paper on the floor and tables down, and they had the band seminar. Then they took the tables out and we got it ready for the prom. Well, unbeknownst to everybody, we had a gentleman named John Ulmer. He's still in town. He could take that little thing out of the 2 doors. He knew how to twist it and pop it out there. We hot wired that little Nash, drove it in the gym, backed it up to the stage, revved it up, and burnt rubber for about 20 feet, slammed the brakes on and got it back out and put everything back. And he put the paper down on the floor. Now, nobody's seen that floor for about 3-4 weeks. When we took the paper up, Mr. Stinson came and got the band boys. He knew exactly who did it. But he wasn't really mad. He just went, how did you do it? He was trying to scold us and laugh at us at the same time. So as punishment, we had to get on our hands and knees and scrub the floor and clean that off. And he would look out there and see us, and he just walked through on the other end and just chuckle. It was quite special.
Do you stay in contact with your classmates now?
Well, the class of 1964 is more like a family. Yes, we have Facebook Messenger, we talk, we listen. We have coffee at Ginny Casto's house quite often. We have an annual sock hop. That came from our 50th reunion. Everybody was so glad to see each other, and we have stayed so tight, and it's great.
Yeah, it really is great.
We're never going to get old.
Do you have a favorite hangout place after school?
Oh, if you wanted to restore something, I'd have to bring back Moore's Soda Bar Restaurant. Nickel Coke, you could get a cherry phosphate. It was great. And if you want to see a piece of history, visit the Speakeasy and that phone booth back in the corner. We've made phone calls in that. That was from Moore's Restaurant.
What's the first car you drove?
The first car I drove was my mother's 1957 Ford. It was a 2-door, hardtop. It was 2-tone, green and white. And we had fun with that thing.
After high school, did you go to college or the service?
Well, I was too dumb to go to college, too ornery. I wound up in the National Guard for 6 years. I put my time in there, and it was a bad time because of what was going on in Southeast Asia. And I got to go to the riots. I'm not sure that wasn't any fun. Cleveland ones and Akron and Kent State. Got to see that mess, and they'll never tell the truth about it.
Did you have any hobbies that you had in school or anything that you continued on through with your life?
Well, I did play with my photography a lot, but I'd let it go and it comes back, and now with these new digital stuff, it's scary what you can take. And I did a little bit of woodworking then, and I still play with that a little bit. And,
Still work on cars?
oh yeah, I let that go for many years, and I got back at it, and I drive an old ratty Blazer. Everybody laughs at it, but I can work on it, and it's just putting a pair of old shoes on. I just love the darn thing.
What important event in Canal Fulton's history occurred while you lived here?
That would have been the Sesky Centennial, the first canal days. And I went to that same barbershop, Art Lowry's, and they had a beard growing contest. And I'd been working on the farm, and this is 1964. I'd graduated, and I'm all scruffy, and I had to shave every day. Art talked me into entering a beard contest. He said, I'll cut it off after we get done. Okay. I won 3rd place in the darn thing. And there's some pictures around of all 3 of us that they took. That, I never grew a beard after that. I grew a mustache once, but no more beards.
Did you ride your bike in the parades?
Oh, that was a big deal. On Memorial Day, everybody crepe paper and a baseball card and the spokes and decorated them all up, streamers, and we probably would have 35 to 50 bikes every time. And they put us kids right out there in front.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big deal. Right, you know, we were first, and there was a color guard right after us. That's the way it was done.
How do you feel the generation you grew up, it was different than other generations? And what's the biggest changes you have seen in Canal Fulton in reference to community and technology?
Oh, golly. We hung out at the library. We researched things. And if one of the kids their parents was lucky enough to have an encyclopedia, you went over and picked on them. And we researched books. Nobody does that. Now they got their thumbs and their phone.
They got the world in their hands.
Yes, it's just instant information. To watch the town change when they put the electricity underground, I worked for the Edison and got to be part of that. And I can honestly say I like the poles, everything overhead, because that's what I grew up with. They wanted it to look like it did, but all the pictures I've ever seen from the 1900s, we had telephone wires up, electric wires up there, and poles, and the old street lights. And
yeah, but back in the day before electricity, they didn't.
It wasn't
have
any. I realized that. It was.
What's your favorite place in Canal Fulton?
Oh golly. Well, it was either Moore's Restaurant or Ozier's. And Ozier's has still been there. I have to tell you one tale. When Ozier put the custard machine in, you had that one little window you went to. It's in the hot summer. The line was all the way around the block. And we're about halfway down and the word came back he ran out. He'd reload the machine, take about 45 minutes. Nobody left. We waited to get our first custard. It was absolutely, the whole town was there. And from what I can remember, and I could be wrong, but it was only like 500 people in the whole town. Just truly, everybody knew everybody. I think I knew where every kid in my class lived and their parents' names. There was 92 of us, 360 in the whole high school. It was absolutely, when you look at Grease, the movie, or American Graffiti, the movie, that was us. That really was us.
Do you feel it's important to preserve the history of Canal Fulton for future generations.
Oh yes, most definitely. If I could give the young people today, and I'm talking from infants to 20-year-olds, some inspiration to realize how good they got. Come up and walk through the cemetery, start in the old part, and start reading some of the epitaphs, or take some paper and do a rubbing, they call it. You'll be amazed at some of the things you see in the Canal Fulton Union Cemetery or the Catholic Cemetery or the Pioneer Cemetery. I was in Cub Scouts and my Cub Scout leader was out the street there. And he had a terrible time keeping us from digging them people up and getting their 6 guns. No, I'm telling you. But the history, it's so good. And some of the old houses, the architecture, and there's real stories, real lives were there.
I want to take you back to school. Do you have any Mrs. Fletcher stories?
Miss Fletcher taught my dad and his 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and we had to do an autobiography. Miss Fletcher, anybody that she had before that, now her dad graduated in 38, I'm 64. She had everybody's family tree, right down to the T. And if you didn't just have something right, she'd correct you on it. And it was really an adventure and a chore, but you look back on that book now, and mine's named Johnson's Folly, and you had to write a chapter on the future. That's plain scary. Mine, unbeknownst to me, so much of it came true, and a few things didn't, but it's surprising that somebody that was 16 years old could write that about what you wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to be a Ford dealer, that went out the window. I wanted to be a farmer, that went out the window. I wanted to be a lineman, and I never thought I'd do that. But I built a house on a hill overlooking a lake. And it was 20 years later when I happened to get the book out and realized, good grief, I did that. And you don't realize some of these things. It's really...
Is there a tradition your family had when you were young that your family of today continues?
Well, the family, there's only 2 of us left in town. And the rest of them went way south. There's not much left of us, but there was the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas and things like that. It was always special. And it was just a great meal, get together and just talk and listen. Family is something that's like I say, our class, there's so many of us like that. You know, I used to come through town after school. We would cruise the 2 blocks of town, and you see these old fellas sitting on the bench. Well, I'm that old fellow sitting on the bench, and I wished I'd listened to them old fellas more. That's one of the reasons I want to try to pass on any of these tales that I can remember. And one of the things, all the kids in my class, we lived in the canal. We had rafts, we had boats on that canal. We'd go all the way down to Lock 4 and back. It was just great.
Did you have, I know you said you worked on the farm. Do you have any of the Feedmill stories and the railroad tracks?
Oh golly. I was 11 years old. We had a 1950 Ford F6, a big dump truck, had wooden sides with these chains that held the sides from falling apart, and a tailgate, of course. And it's harvest time, and my uncle had to go to work, and Grandpa wasn't feeling good, and so I took the load of grain into the mill. Now I'm sitting clear up where the bank was. That's a couple blocks away. I got there about 10 o'clock at night. And they always had 3 big box cars that they'd fill with grain. All the trucks had been weighed before, so they knew what the tare weight was. And you pulled your truck up, and they weighed it, and then you dumped it in the thing, and you had to go in the feed mill and sign that that was your load. And Mr. Arthur came out and he says, well, go get your uncle. I said, Uncle Bob's not here. Where's your grandpa? He's at home in bed too. This is 3 o'clock in the morning until I finally got up my turn. And he said, who brought the truck in? I said, I did. you know, stick shift with an old vacuum shift, 2-speed axle in it.
And 11 years old?
So I went in and signed it. Yeah, I was 5 when we started driving tractors, and you know, you had to stand up on the clutch to push it in because you didn't have enough hind end or put some bricks in your pockets to push it down. And that's what we did. You know, it was great. And I took that truck home that night, and I was going back up. We call it up on the hill because it's up on the old prehistoric river valley. It's one of the highest spots. And I'm thinking I was the king of the world. It was just it wasn't a chore. It was an honor to do something like that. He was a part of that farm, that family. And it's great. I hope people today can feel parts of that.
I miss the train stopping down at the feed mill.
Oh, they would bring that steam locomotive with passenger cars in. Twice a summer they would do this. And they would take us up to, it's up there by Medina, the old amusement park. What's the name of that?
Chippewa?
Chippewa Lake. And you had to walk about 1.5 miles from the railroad to the amusement park. And we go to the amusement park all day long, hike back to the train, come back home, let you off. And the depot is right across from the feed mill. And we didn't realize what an adventure we did. To get to ride on a steam engine again, it was just absolutely hot, rattly, dusty. You'd give anything to do it one more time.
I remember walking to school and going down that way, and the trains would be coming in, and the hobos would jump off
Oh, we had
and run and hide until the train was ready to go again.
Yeah, you see a train would pull out, that train would start to move, and you see these guys running up, and they jump on the train.
Jump on the train, take off and go again.
Of course, Rogues Hollow up there was supposed to be one of the biggest hobo villages, you know, in the country. It's
A lot of
truly
history
amazing.
around here.
And I still, to this day, when I drive through towns, and I go slow like an old guy would, I still see it like it was in 1950. And that's special.
Are there any words of wisdom you would like to share about life in a small town or anything else that you learned during your life?
Just take the time to look around. As you used to say, take the time to smell the roses. It's not going to be there forever. It's going to constantly change. But how these young people find it today is how we saw it back then. It's going to be their old town. You embrace it and love it. Progress, sometimes we don't like it, but it has to happen. It's inevitable. But we can still keep a lot of our heritage. And the heritage today isn't so much us, it's the young people.
Well, we would like to thank you for being part of this, to recapture some of the history. I'm glad that you chose to do this. It was very good. But why did you choose to do this?
Because as much as I love this town, I want to pass that love on to the young people. I don't have to travel the world to see something fantastic. It's not just the buildings, it's not just the streets, it's the people too. To see families downtown on Sunday afternoon at Ozier's and at the Creamery, Mom, Dad, the kids, that's the new chicken dinner that I talked about. That's the new way, that's progress. But to see them down there, or on the weekends, the young fellas playing the guitar out there, that's your town. You don't have to go to California to find that. We're just as rich in history as any place else. You just have to let it be.
Yep, that's for
And
sure.
love it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.